Kentucky Route Zero is an episodic point-and-click adventure game that released its first act in 2013, with its fifth and final act scheduled to come out sometime this year. There are also currently 4 free interludes to the acts that are available on the Kentucky Route Zero website. The best description of the game is the one given by the developers. Kentucky Route Zero is a magical, realist adventure game about a secret highway in the caves beneath Kentucky, and the mysterious folk who travel it. The game is developed by the small team Cardboard Computer, which consists of Jake Elliott, Thomas Kamency, and Ben Babbitt, the last of which developed an original score for the game along with music recorded by the Bedquilt Ramblers. To get any sort of understanding as to the meanings of what's going on in Kentucky Route Zero, there has to be first a basic understanding of the plot so far, and some of the characters' pasts. I will be spoiling most of the events of the game up to this point. Act 1 opens with Conway, a delivery man for Lisette's Antiques, stopping at a gas station to get directions. He asks the humble gas station attendant Joseph for directions, who informs him that a woman named Weaver Marquez can help. Conway meets Weaver at her family's farm, but there is definitely something off about her. She tells Conway that if he wants to get to 5 Dogwood Drive, he's going to have to take the Zero, the mystical highway this game is centered around. However, getting on the Zero is no simple or clear task, so she tells Conway to head to the Elkhorn mine, and from there, his entrance to the Zero is inevitable. There, Conway meets Shannon Marquez, who is Weaver's cousin. She explains that Weaver has been missing for many years and just appeared today. When down in the mine, Conway's leg is crushed by a cave collapsing, and it is seriously injured. Conway and Shannon then head back to the farm, where through Shannon repairing the TV, they then both enter the Zero. We find Conway and Shannon now at the Bureau of Reclaimed Spaces, trying to find out how to get to Dogwood Drive. There, they meet Lula, the architect from the interlude Limits and Demonstrations, which showcases her artworks. She tells him that they are going to have to go to a storage facility to find out the directions to get there, which Shannon finds. However, Conway collapses from his leg, so they decide to find out where a doctor that Lula recommended is. They head to the Museum of Dwellings, where they meet Ezra and his giant bird Julian, who fly him to the doctor. There, Conway is given a strange drug called Neuripinol TM and is told after he is under the influence of the drug that he is now in debt to a company called Consolidated Power Co. Conway starts off in a dream, which is a flashback to when he was talking to Lisette earlier that morning. Conway wakes up from the medication and finds out that his leg is this strange crystalline projection, looking the same as the crystal skeleton we see at the end of the entertainment, one of the interludes. These crystal skeletons work for a company called Hard Times, which is closely related to the Consolidated Power Company. Conway, Shannon, and Ezra head out to find a way back onto the Zero. However, Conway's truck breaks down. A pair of robotic musicians named Junebug and Johnny stop to help them out, and in repayment, the group agrees to go see Junebug and Johnny perform. They arrive at the bar, where the events of the entertainment seemingly just took place, and the duo performs a dreamlike performance. Harry the bartender then tells them how they can get back to the Zero by playing with the radio. When they get back on the Zero, the group, which now consists of Conway, Shannon, Ezra, Junebug, and Johnny, come across the Hall of the Mounted King, This is where they meet Donald and find out about his life's work, a computer called Xanadu. However, currently it doesn't work properly, but says that a group of creatures called the Strangers might know how to fix it. We come to find out that underneath a graveyard that is through the tunnels, there is a distillery for Hard Times whiskey, and that those crystalline skeletons are the Strangers. Hard Times also uses caskets to age their whiskey instead of barrels. We find out that the Strangers have some tool that they call the formula that allows them to do barely any math, all while calculating costs for their business. This is something Weaver Marquez most likely created, and then she disappeared for good. They give Conway and Shannon a tour of the facility, tell them how to fix the computer, and give Conway a glass of whiskey. However, all this came with an unmentioned and extreme cost. Conway now has to work for the distillery. It is also revealed during this scene that Conway is in part responsible for the death of Lisette's son, Charlie, as on one of the days that Conway was supposed to work, he was so hungover in the barn, so Lisette sent Charlie to do the work, but he fell off the roof of the building when he got there and died. The group makes their way back to Xanadu and fixes it. Through the computer, they uncover the story of Joseph, Lula, and Donald. Once best friends and colleagues, they found this place and set their computers up here for research. However, after an encounter with the Strangers, Lula and Joseph, who were lovers at the time, left Donald. Donald hired many assistants, including Weaver Marquez, until she left, and is hinted at to heading the way of the Strangers and working with them. The group returns to the Bureau, and now with Xanadu fixed, it tells them the location of Dogwood Drive. They need to take the mucky mammoth boat along the Echo River to get to it. Act 4 is much different than the other acts, being mostly about character development. This act can also be played two completely different ways, along with all the dialogue options. You can either follow the events that happen on the boat, or the events that happen off the boat during this time period. During this act, we find out that Shannon's parents, who were miners in the Elkhorn mine, died from it flooding many years back. There is a memorial for all the dead miners on the Echo River. At the end of this act, Conway has fully turned into one of the Strangers and is taken by them to go work now. Shannon, Ezra, Junebug, and Johnny agree to finish his delivery for him, and a somber ending to the penultimate act. Much of the story deals with the concept of debt and its many forms, the most obvious of them being examples like the debt that Harry the bartender has to Hard Times, how his customers often have debt to him, and how he sells their debt to Hard Times to pay off his own. There is also the debt that the Marquez family is in, and how they have to sell their house, or how Ezra's parents were in debt and lost their health and had to sleep at a bus stop, or the debt Conway is in now to Hard Times, and so on and so forth. This is a debt through greed. This kind of greed is very taxing on people and causes great stress. It's probably the reason why Ezra's parents forgot about him at the bus stop. Shannon tells us it's the reason why Weaver left, that she saw the family's books and knew there was nothing to be done. There is another kind of debt that the game deals with. It's the kind of debt that we have to other people, like the debt Conway feels to Lisette for the death of Charlie, even saying at one point that he wishes Lisette did blame him for the death of her son, so that one day she might forgive him. This, compounded with the debt Conway had to Hard Times, is why at the end of Act 4 he gives in and accepts his fate of working for the company. The game and its developers make clear of their influence by avant-garde art from the 20th century. In Act 1, one of the things you must do is log into Joseph's computer to find out where to go. He tells you that the password is a poem of sorts, and that you should just feel it out. This is an allusion to automatic writing that was popular among surrealists like André Breton. Automatic writing is where you would write down whatever words came to your mind. This was an attempt at getting rid of the barrier between the unconscious mind and the conscious mind. Another example of the game's avant-garde influences is through the use of tape recorders in music. Clara, a musician, says she often uses tape in her music by using what she calls found sounds. This is a technique that was popular in the late 20th century with the minimalist movement, most notably with the composers Steve Reich and Terry Riley. Steve Reich used tape recorders playing and recording each other back and forth in his famous piece Come Out, in which he recorded a man speaking during the Harlem riots. Terry Riley used this in his piece Concerto for 2 Pianos and 5 Tape Recorders, where he recorded the sounds of pianos being moved across a stage and cut it all together into one piece. The aspects of randomness in Act 4 are also reminiscent of art in the 20th century. The randomized cocktail menu at the Rum Bar and the randomized food menu at Sam and Ida's are like the methods of composition explored by choreographer Merce Cunningham. Merce Cunningham would have his dancers learn a set of movements very well and assign letters or numbers to the movements, and then call out random numbers or letters and have the dancers dance in a different random order each time. Kentucky Route Zero is a fantastic story-driven game with many things that I have barely even touched. Everything from the bluegrass band that acts as a Greek choir, through the astonishingly beautiful scene of Junebug and Johnny performing, to the reflective and thoughtful dialogue, give this game a character like no other.